Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rechak Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Baruch, the 5th chapter, which is the last chapter of the book of Baruch. And as a continuation from the 4th chapter, as we ended off, going into the redemption of Israel, right? The mercy the Lord is going to bring upon the nation of Israel, right? Ultimately, in prophecy, right? Continuing on in chapter 5, it pretty much finishes on that note, right? So it starts off going into the acknowledgement, right? The book of Baruch, that is, from the 1st chapter, the acknowledgement and realization of the iniquities that our people had committed, for which reason the Lord brought such calamities upon us. One prime example being the siege of Jerusalem, around like 586 BC. And then also transitioning into from mourning to, beseeching the Lord for mercy, and then ultimately into the grace and the mercy that the Lord is going to bestow upon his people. So this is the book of Baruch chapter 5, verse 1. Put off, O Jerusalem, the garment of mourning and affliction, and put on the comeliness of the glory that cometh from God forever. Now, jumping back to the previous chapter, remember how there was this personification of Jerusalem, right? Likened onto, pretty much like onto a widow, or like onto a mother that had lost their children, which was the Israelites being taken out of the land. Now, when you come down, just making reference to it in Baruch chapter 4, verse, let's see. Yeah, Baruch chapter 4, verse 19. Go your way, O my children, go your way, for I am left desolate. I have put off the clothing of peace, and put on, or put upon me, the sackcloth of my prayer. I will cry unto the everlasting in my days. So you notice here, right? It talks about, because this was that emphasis on the mourning, the state of mourning. But now coming back to Baruch 5, it's now the reverse, right? As it says, put off the garment of mourning and affliction, right? That sackcloth that we just referenced, and put on the comeliness, which goes into the beauty, right, of the glory that cometh from God forever. Because ultimately, what is the Lord going to do, right? This reward, this salvation we're talking about, part of it is going to consist of not only the Lord delivering us, but raising up the nation of Israel in all aspects back to the top, the top nation on the earth. We're going to look different. We're going to behave differently, act differently, live differently, right? And that's going to be a part of that beautifying, right? Or the glory that the Lord is going to bestow back upon his chosen people. And so at that point, the nation of Israel will truly be able to embody what it means to be the chosen nation of the Lord. Verse 2, cast about thee a double garment of the righteousness which cometh from God, and set a diadem on thine head of the glory of the everlasting. And a diadem looks like this. Almost like a crown, or, as you can see, I don't even want to say what they call a tiara, right? But you can see it looks something like that, right? Like a crown, basically. So this is basically like a in the metaphorical sense here, dress or be arrayed in this like royal and glorious apparel, which is likened unto being beautified again. But this is going to come from the Most High, Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Verse 3, for God will shew thy brightness unto every country under heaven, right? And that brightness going into that glory. Because typically, glorious things are attributed onto being bright, right? Shining, that their beauty or glory may be seen all around. So these nations, these neighboring nations, really the whole world is going to witness this change, just as they did the downfall of Israel. Verse 4, for thy name shall be called of God forever, the peace of righteousness. So the Most High is going to call you forever, right? The peace of righteousness and the glory of God's worship. And so, like I mentioned before, Jerusalem or Israel will be looked at as, you know, what it means to actually be, as it says, the glory of God's worship, right? What it actually means to be the servants or the sons of God. Okay, the true worshipers of the Heavenly Father. Verse 5, arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about toward the east. And behold, thy children gathered from the west onto the east by the word of the Holy One. Right, so you can imagine, you know, you have certain, like if you imagine those scenes where you have like this giant castle, and then there's this part, what is it called? Almost like a balcony, where you can, you know, it's pretty high up, but you can go on there and you can sort of get that view of everything going on there, right? But this time, as it says, look about toward the east and behold. So see thy children gathered from the west onto the east by the word of the Holy One. So when, and what this is going to look like is when the Holy One, right, the word of the Holy One, Yahweh Shai, comes back, makes his second return, he's going to send his angels to gather the children here, which are the elect or the chosen of the nation of Israel, from the different parts of the earth where they've been scattered. And they're going to be gathered together, by, as it says, by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of God. So one example is when we go to the book of Revelation, the 15th chapter, right? It says here, Revelation chapter 15, and I'm just going to go straight to the point. Revelation 15:2, and I saw, this was the Apostle John, what he saw in a vision. And what he saw here was the elect having been delivered from the nuclear destruction, aka World War III. So it says, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast. So that sea of glass mingled with fire was the perception, right, that the Apostle John was seeing of the nuclear destruction on the bottom, right, but through the firmament, because glass is typically transparent. Okay, but this is basically what he is seeing here. In other words, he was seeing from a bird's eye view the destruction. Okay. It says, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast. These that had gotten the victory over the beast are synonymous with those children that are going to be gathered in Baruch 5. It says, and over his image, which we know the beast is, you know, the power structure set in place today that is pretty much driving this world into that whole digital age, right? The NATO, the EU, right? America at the top. This body, okay, of nations forms that beast. So it's not a literal animal. It says, and over his mark and over the number of his name, which we know the mark is the C-hip, right? The implant that they're going to force upon the world. But these people here, right, they got the victory through the Lord because they didn't succumb to the new, you know, regulations or the temptation of receiving the mark. And over the number of his name stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. The point here in verse 3 being, and they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Lord, power almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. So there's going to be a great rejoicing when in those chariots, right, or in Yahweh Shai's chariot, when the elect get delivered. There's going to be a great rejoicing, because the Apostle John, when you read in the first verse, this is what he saw. So he's not going to say that people were singing and rejoicing if they weren't, right? And so coming back to the book of Baruch chapter 5, as it says here in the latter part, rejoicing in the remembrance of God. So there's an example there in Revelation 15. Verse 6, for they departed from thee on foot, right? We were sent out from our homeland on foot, whether by the Babylonians, whether during the siege, whether the siege I'm talking about 70 AD or post that time. Long story short, we were in one way or another, in one time period or another, taken out of our land, and were led away of their enemies. But God bringeth them unto thee exalted with glory. So when we return back, as a matter of fact, as the scriptures say, we're going to be changed. So we're not even going to go back on the same level in which we left. Right? So it says, unto thee exalted with glory as what? Children of the kingdom. Verse 7, for God hath appointed that every high hill and banks of long continuance should be cast down, and valleys filled up, to make even the ground, that Israel may go safely in the glory of God. In other words, the Lord is going to prepare and remove any obstacles out the way. Now, as we've gone through before, you have there are times when you have the mention of hills, right, or mountains, which are literal, but also can represent bodies of governments, right, or rulerships, which we know that even in this case, right, in a literal sense, what this would look like is the Lord making even the path to make a way for us to go safely, right? But in actuality, what is the Lord doing? He's casting down the different strongholds, the different nations, everybody, okay, to where he can deliver us out of here and take us back to that land without opposition. And no, God is not gonna come up against us in the kingdom. Anyway, verse 8, moreover, even the woods and every sweet-smelling tree shall overshadow Israel by the commandment of God. And guess what? The trees, they have a spirit as well. Okay? So everything is going to be in sync. Everything is going to be, every living thing, from animals to trees to all of these things, even the earth, is going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Ecstatic, happy, joyous at this day, when the true judges of the earth are returned back to their state. Verse 9, for God shall lead Israel with joy in the light of his glory, with the mercy and righteousness that cometh from him. Okay, and that ultimately brings us to the end of Baruch, the 5th chapter. And ultimately, how is the Lord going to do this? Well, when he sends his son back to deliver us, okay, and take us out of here in those chariots and take us back to that land. And from then on, it's going to be a new chapter. Okay, so Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.